It's the community redraw, the time of the month I take your submissions, do something wacky with them, and draw them in my style. So let's bring these illustrations to life. Well, I guess we should get this briefing out the way. Before we decide what to do with the scientists responsible for the reality fusion incident of recent days, unfortunately the expedition team is still lost in an unknown dimension when this incident happened. The experiment happening on site in the lab at the time, Project Overseer, was to see what was happening in various multiversal dimensions without having the need to travel there. It was nearing the final stages when there was a strange power surge throughout the building. It was found out that the strange power surge was caused by one of the more eccentric researchers. In fact, since gaining the position of lead researcher, there have been over 40 incidents where a project in their hands has gone awry. As such, we think we need to figure out what happens next. As such, we need to figure out what to do next. Even though the results when the projects go right are unquestionable, the last one has left us in quite the predicament. Let's start with the first specimen, and as with all specimens we're going to cover today, the first is a fusion of two creatures from two different dimensions, one being a Pokemon called Baxcalibur, and the other being a creature we believe to be a Draxiblade, a Pokemon-type creature from alternate universe. It's seriously a messed up situation. This Dragon Sword Pokemon looks more like a Velociraptor, and from our studying of this fused creature, the scales are stronger than steel and its tail is similar to a harpoon. This one has a very volatile personality and seems to be constantly looking for a lot of fights with strong opponents. This thing loves the battle so much, it took several teams to capture the creature. We found it battling the demons of E666. Ironically, it was holding its own and even winning against some of the more dangerous inhabitants of this hellish dimension. Little else is known about this creature. However, as mentioned before, it appears to be a fusion of Pokemon-type creatures from two different dimensions. This has given it a rather unique appearance, and despite looking more like a dinosaur from our history, this creature does have a high level of intelligence. The team sent to capture it were only incapacitated in non-lethal attacks. The outcome was far more ideal than we had expected. With that said, it looks like this is perhaps the nicest out of the specimens we are covering today. Not to be fooled by these facts though. This creature has a thirst for battle on a level that could match Ehrenfeld Bainsworth. Perhaps it would be good to have these two meet and see what happens once we retrieve the expedition team. I am curious the outcome of their first encounter. Now that the first specimen is covered, the next one is a rather interesting one. It appears to be a fusion of a Pokemon and a humanoid character. Although the body remains closer to the Pokemon, it is clear that several features of the human were fused and carried over to the appearance that we can see. The Pokemon in this fusion is clearly a Toxicity. However, instead of being purple with yellow sections on it, this one is green in colour, and it had the traits of the human host known as Biodanta. According to our files, Danta was born in Detroit on his Earth and grew up under less than fortunate circumstances, taking Danta down a dark path into a life of petty crimes. During a heist, his conscience got the better of him, and he stole the cargo, a form of nerf gas. During the caper, he was exposed, and it changed him and altered his DNA. It was mutated, and he developed a kind of superpower. We only class this as a kind of superpower, as it's far from one of those top choices people would have, like flight, super strength, invulnerability, heat vision, super speed. Instead, it was the power to produce an acid-like sweat. For years, he used his power, as it were, to commit more crimes, melting through faults as well as the tyres of police cars that were about to chase him. This gave him the nickname Biodanta, the Toxic Nightmare. That's all the information on the human we have for now. But these acid-like powers had fused with the electric powers of Toxicity and created a rather new and unique variant. We did manage to capture this specimen, however regular containment methods did fail at first due to the acid-like mist and electric that can corrode almost anything it comes into contact with. Many agents were injured and some were killed by this creature in our first initial encounter. That said, we've now contained the subject and are looking into what can be done to undo this strange fusion and return the human subject back to their original form, even if it is one with a dangerous power and past. It's not our place to leave things how they are about trying to fix what one of our projects has caused. Despite this, I have to say, the look and feel of the fused creature is rather awesome, and I think if we can't restore the original forms, It would make an ideal member of an exploration team or an elite guard to fight against Loki and his minions. The next one is a bit of a mystery. The Pokemon that have been fused is one we do know about, Salazzle. However, the entity that it's been fused with, little is known about this creature, only that it's dark in colour and covered with fur-like spines. Any other details still elude us. The main body is mostly that of Salazzle. However, its size is that of a small child, much larger than the Pokemon's original size. Like the Pokemon, we believe this one to be female in nature, and it's a rather cunning and mischievous one at that. The only thing we've figured out about this human host is a single word that is spoken by this fused creature, Scalur. We think this could be the name of this unknown entity, however, this is just speculation. It was rather difficult to find this specimen due to its size and the speed it can move at. The other issue when capturing this creature to study it was the fact this Pokemon is a toxic fire type, often referred to as the toxic lizard Pokemon. The mischievous creature led the capture team in circles, often causing distractions with fire-based attacks before using a form of poison cloud that wasn't lethal, but left many agents paralysed. In fact, some are still in this condition several weeks after the gas has taken effect. We have discovered that this specimen is quite the escape artist and has escaped the lab while being studied. The recent damage to Area Delta has been caused by this creature running amok. The only saving grace is the childlike nature of this specimen. It seems happy to return to the lab for study for short periods of time after having its fun and mischievousness. The boys in the lab are a bit infuriated at times by the specimen's antics, and one of them believes the specimen is becoming more dangerous in nature, despite the fact no one is severely injured in any of the escape incidents so far. The staff member has been ordered to undergo regular evaluations in order to ensure there is no underlying factor involved in this. We have, however, decided to increase monitoring of the specimen. It's best to be prepared just in case. On to our second Pokemon humanoid fusion out of the specimens captured. This one is more humanoid than Pokemon in its form, as well as its knowledge and linguistical skills. This one does have a name for the human side, Hataf, and we have managed to get some information about the origins of Hataf. Hataf's homeworld was holding back a land, well, more like a giant cyst called the Crimson, with all of its strength. Unfortunately, it was not able to hold back the Crimson being much longer. The evil land came from a much more evil being, Cthulhu. The race of Dryads fought this evil being until he fled to the moon, but not before the world got infected, and all except for one Dryad remained. The world used the rest of its strength to make Hataf pure being unlike any other, skillful enough to combine materials together to help or completely annihilate the whole world. He chose to help kill Cthulhu and cleanse the world of the evil Crimson being. As he continued, little did he know, the Crimson continued to spread until it consumed almost his whole planet. It took him 5 years. He crafted the Zenith, a mighty sword to get rid of the Crimson. He went to the heart of the Crimson threat, and with all his might, thrust the almighty sword straight through, saving his world. Unfortunately, another world had already been taken over by the Crimson threat in his universe. That was the last thing he remembered before being pulled into our dimension and fused with a Pokemon known as Jolteon. This gave him a combination of blue and yellow fur, the dark black eyes of Jolteon, and the nose, with his cape and shoulder pads becoming more like sharp spikes of fur with an electrical charge. Thankfully, his reasoning was still intact, and this specimen was more than happy to help us with our research into what happened to him, in the hopes of reversing the situation and returning him back to his dimension to continue the fight against the Crimson. We feel that if this threat is as dangerous as mentioned, we'll offer a lending hand to stop it. If it manages to get out of its current dimension, it could infect the multiverse, and that's something we do not want to be responsible for. Finally, we have the last specimen of this incident for today, and this one is perhaps the most dangerous specimen we have, not only due to the abilities, but also due to the nature of the human host. This one is from a dimension we've had interactions with before. The name of the human host is William Winifred, and from our records, he is an international criminal. a crime lord. In fact, with a reputation for being the actual owner and descendant of those who created London. He is also an elite member in the highest echelons of society, with an authority above the royal family and government. Shrewd and cunning, he is also in charge of many companies with a keen sense of business. However, even though he is a crime lord, his face remains hidden behind a mask that has a Union Jack on it with what appears to be gas mask-like features. A long cloak with a fur-like collar is also normal attire for this mastermind. The only way we knew that he was part of the fusion at first was due to his mask being part of the face of the Pokemon he was fused with. It was none other than the Pokemon Blastoise, the water Pokemon with immense strength and power in its attacks. Our teams took the most damage from this specimen. It was far from a peaceful task to contain. In fact, we had to send out most of our elites in the region he appeared in order to restrain him. Although we can study other specimens with relative ease, this one has been deemed too dangerous to study, for the time being at least, and has instead been locked away in a containment cell within Sector 7. Despite this, we do fear that even such precautions may not be enough to prevent this mastermind from escaping and causing more havoc in our dimension. Great care has been made to ensure all chances of escape are reduced, but little is known about William Winifred and his new abilities from fusing with Blastoise. It has given him an unparalleled set of new abilities that may take him to new heights within the criminal world. We also decided it's best not to let this specimen know we have a way to travel to various dimensions, including his original one. After all, it was our mishap, shall we say, that caused the current situation. How do you guys think today's community redraw came out? I really enjoyed taking your original characters and your favourite Pokemon and fusing them together to bring a nice array of unique new characters into the storyline. I think they all came out really well. As always, everyone's submission was absolutely amazing and it was very difficult to choose. But special thanks go to Space Raptors Infinite, Galhound19, Noxy Twicker and D9 Flow. I'll be sending you a high-res version of the final artwork in the next couple of days, so be sure to keep an eye out for that. Anyway, stay safe everybody. Catch you next time.
Oh yeah, details for the next community redraw. Design a monster creature, including one headshot and one full body shot. Add up some information about the creature, abilities, and the habitat. Deadline is the 20th of February. You can submit to the email address or on the Discord server. You can find details in the description of this video.
Anyway, stay safe everybody. Catch you next time.